Yeah, we got to figure this out. I must have just. Hold on. How long was I sitting here just staring into space? A minute. Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Stochastic NFL Showdown Strategy Show coming to you early Thursday morning for as Matt Gajewski would call it, a greasy football game. 37.5 point total. Carolina Panthers on the road against the Chicago Bears. You know, we've seen some games where pricing is real difficult. Yeah, not today. Not today. Now, things are going to get a little bit weird. Backfield for Chicago if Khalil Herbert returns, putting in full practices throughout the week. DJ Shark looks like he's going to be out. Tyson Bagent getting another start. We are here. And we are ready. Dave Loughran, Laffy_D on the Twitters, joined as always by Matt Gajewski, Matt_Gajewski. What's up, brother?
Not much. Ready to talk about my Chicago Bears. Rarely do we get a primetime Chicago Bears game, so this is a real treat for me. They're not very good, but, I love watching my Bears.
They've had, the other primetime game they played this year, they smoked the Commanders.
Was that a Sunday night game?
I think, but it was definitely primetime. I know that. No, it wasn't. It was a Monday it was a Thursday game.
Wow, can't remember that.
Yeah.
It's crazy how far we've come.
Amazon Prime they've really picked the winners for Amazon Prime this year.
It reminds me of Thursday night of old. It used to be like a running joke. Thursday night was always the worst game.
Yep. And well, it still is. Still is. Happy to have you guys with us. Hey, take a single second as you walk in the door. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment down below if you're listening or watching. And after the fact, at the very least, we read all of them. Try and respond to all of them as well. But yeah, atone for your sins here on a Thursday morning. Tap that thumbs up. Takes a single second. And it goes a long way for us. I can assure you of that. Also, all of our content in podcast form. Maybe one day it's just easier for you to listen to this in a podcast. Well, it'll be up there sooner than later. And all of our podcast exclusive content, Ben and I already did one for Tuesday. It's a fantastic show. It was 30 minutes long. That's it. 30 minutes of your day. It is going to enlighten you, provide you with insight that you never thought you could find in the DFS space in a 30-minute time period. Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever it is. Check all that stuff out. Subscribe to the pod. Leave us a rating, review. All that good stuff helps us greatly. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. I actually think this could be a relatively fun game. An ugly, disgusting game, yes, without question, but potentially fun. As long as Bryce Young doesn't throw 2 pick sixes to the same guy this week, we might be okay. JM, bless me, Laffy, for I have said you have atoned, you are forgiven, my friend. I am going to hell. Anyway, Matt, we've got the Panthers, the Bears. We'll build a lineup. We'll take a look at the Sims. Mike's running that behind the scenes as well. Maybe the lineup generator if we have time. Your initial thoughts on this, just to lay the foundation. We've got Brian Burns out for Carolina. Curious how much you think that impacts them with Henderson's out too, but the Brian Burns thing is pretty significant. When you look at this spread, I see some 3.5s and some 3s out there. Do you have a lean one way or the other?
Honestly, I would take the points with Carolina if you force me to. I don't know, man. I do not buy the Bears. Their offensive line is pretty decent, so that Brian Burns mismatch maybe is the way the Bears move the ball. But I still think we're just dealing with more talent on the Carolina side. Like, just on paper, I cannot possibly back Tyson Bagent throwing to Velus Jones and Tyler Scott when we have #1 pick Bryce Young with at least somewhat reasonable weapons. Like Chuba Hubbard's been fine, Adam Thielen. They also have promising rookie Jonathan Mingo. I mean, I just cannot back the Bears, I think, really in any game unless they're facing, I don't know, the Cardinals or something.
Yeah. Well, I think you're saying you can't back the Bears as 3-point favorites.
Absolutely, yes.
It's tough. I had mentioned yesterday on a video that if the Bears were -2.5, I'd probably bet them. If the Panthers are +3.5, I'll probably bet them. Just play the key number there because I don't have a really good feel for this game. But you get the Bears inside a field goal or the Panthers outside a field goal. I think you could probably make the argument for either side of that.
Yeah. And I mean, NFL size and totals are relatively efficient. Sometimes you can find your edges, but sometimes you can't, and not going to force it. Maybe you do get a 3.5. I'm seeing Chicago juiced a little bit on that 3.
No, there's 3.5s out there. There's no 2.5s. It's swaying to the 3.5
yeah, I see what
side.
you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Because you're seeing some shaded towards the 3.5s, like minus, or the threes, like what, minus 118, minus 120. So yeah, there's a few 3.5s out there. You're not going to get a 2.5. I'm just saying if I was, it would be easier for me to just be like, all right, screw it. I'll lay the points on the Bears, whatever. But preferably just not bet sides here. There are some good props, but we're talking DFS. So that's why you guys are with us. Let's kick it off with the Panthers, man. The DJ Shark thing. I think you'd agree. We probably have to start here because this is a guy, played 93% of snaps off the bye in week 8, which meant that Thielen, Mingo, and Shark played 97, 99, and 93% of snaps respectively. Terrace Marshall played 4 total snaps in that game. And then DJ Shark, who's doubtful today, hasn't been practicing. He played 56% last game, which means Marshall played 42. Chenault's injured. Smith-Marsette, I assume that he gets on the field unless this is where the expertise comes in. Unless you think they just go like 3 receivers again, and all of those DJ Shark snaps go to Terrace Marshall this week. This is a tough one. What do you think is going to happen?
That's what I think will happen. We saw a massive jump for Terrace Marshall. And if you look at Amir Smith-Marsette's profile, he's on the roster to return kicks and punts. That's what he's done since he's entered the NFL. Not saying he can't play receiver, but teams hold him on their roster, not because the guy's like an elite separator, route runner, or anything. He returns punts and kicks well. So I have a lot of skepticism on him playing a full-time role. I think it's going to be Terrace Marshall out there for most of the snaps. If anything, I'd be worried about them using more like 12 personnel and stuff to ease the loss of DJ Chark. But I don't think it's going to be Amir Smith-Marsette. But yeah, I mean, probably more targets for Thielen. I've been waiting for the Mingo breakout. I assume he gets some of those. But then I think Terrace Marshall's the biggest beneficiary.
He has to be. I mean, if we assume that Smith-Marsette is going to see very limited, if no opportunities, as far as snap share goes, just look at how they've been running their receivers since after the bye. Also, let's not ignore the fact that they have somebody different calling offensive plays now, Matt, since what, week 8, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that since week 8?
Yep.
So how much does that play into this? In week 8, they played almost the entirety of the game. And that to me is nuts. You had what, 67 total offensive snaps. Thielen played 65 of them. Mingo played all but 1 of them. And Shark played all but 5 of them. Is it possible that Terrace Marshall ends up seeing, 80, 90% of snaps? Because this guy's almost minimum salary.
I think it's almost likely. Again, well, I don't think.
I'm sorry, he's $400.
I mean, there's a guy on the Bears who's really cheap like that too. And now you're setting it up in a DFS context. There's really no salary restrictions on this slate. You play Terrace Marshall in your lineup and he opens everything for you. You can play Thielen, who's the most expensive player. You can captain him if you want. Play Bryce, Bagent, whatever Bears running back, Chuba Hubbard, really no problem. So it's a wide open slate. I would be cognizant of ownership in some of these builds that are full stars and scrubs. But yeah, man, I think Terrace Marshall at the stone minimum or just above it, is very viable today. You can use him really in all constructions.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but because it's a single game on the slate, loading up on Panthers doesn't seem all that bad. Even Chuba Hubbard's price point, $8K to me, seems too cheap. Again, you come out of the bye, Chuba Hubbard plays 67 and 63% of snaps. I said as it happened, the Miles Sanders contract was preposterous. There was zero reason any team should be paying a running back that was fine, but he's only good when you're creating space for him and when you're blocking. Like he's the king of yards before contact, and then he can make guys miss once he gets a bit of momentum. He's terrible if you're just expecting him to create things on his own. And he's played 18 and 25% of snaps. Chuba Hubbard's price point to me doesn't make that much sense if we assume that he's going to continue to see a similar amount of opportunities. Listen to this. This season, okay, defenses against running backs in the passing game. So the Chargers have allowed the second most receiving yards to running backs, 426. The Chicago Bears have allowed 578 receiving yards to running backs and 5 receiving touchdowns. That is a ton through 9 games, dude.
And guess who's out? Tremaine Edmonds.
Doesn't help.
Doesn't help. So
dude, that's a lot of production.
Yeah, I like Chuba even before you said that. And before I knew Tremaine Edmonds was out. Volume's been good for him. So you can fall back on that. And then you have some of these matchup advantages. Yeah. I think he's underpriced. Again, there's really no problem playing Thielen, Bryce Young, and Chuba if you want. Comes down to who you prefer your studs to be. But I like him too here. I don't think this game is going to get out of hand one way or the other. So I don't think, this could be a Raheem Blackshear plays a lot in like hurry up offense type game. I think he's going to be on the field a lot and handling a lot of opportunities, especially out of the backfield. Do Bryce Young some favors. Try to get him some receptions to easy players like running backs. I wish they would do more of that, and I hope they do with the OC change.
Too Smooth LP said Dante Foreman props aren't listed on FanDuel. No, because we don't know if Khalil Herbert's playing.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I assume he's going to play. They have to activate him by 4 p.m. I assume he's going to be out there. He's gotten full. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
He's gotten full practices in, so I'd be surprised if he didn't. But just one more second on this backfield for Carolina. You mentioned you already liked him. You mentioned Edwards is out. I mean, that makes Edmonds, is out. That makes a big difference. But ultimately, when you talk about Chuba Hubbard, it's pretty easy. In my opinion, he's underpriced. But at the same time, Miles Sanders feels overpriced. I know that he was targeted 5 times in that last game against Indy. I understand all that. He had 11 total looks. So while he only played 25% of snaps, only 18 total snaps, he was looked, or he had 11 total looks. What do you do with Miles Sanders at that $5,200 tag?
Fade him X amount.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Yeah, it does. It's just we have all of the cheap. We didn't even talk like Mingo's cheaper than him. Of course, we have Terrace Marshall. There's some Bears mid-price guys. So rather than live in that mid-price range, I would rather get up to the stars and scrubs. Because it's not just Sanders. This is a pretty dead zone entirely, unless you're willing to play a kicker or a defense. I think those are my favorite guys, but not playing Hurst, not playing Sanders, probably. I mean, below that, we get pretty stark value plays. It's really just these 2 guys, Sanders and Hurst. And I don't know if I'm going to even have them in a single lineup tonight. You mentioned it with Sanders. You probably need a Chuba Hubbard injury early in the game, too, at this price tag. He's not even priced as a backup.
No, I know it's tough. Would you rather play Hurst or $2,400 Tommy Tremble?
Tremble for the price tag.
Yeah. He has 2 touchdowns, a couple of red zones, a couple of targets inside the 5. They have in the rare occurrence that they get towards the goal line, Matt, they have given a couple looks to Tommy Tremble. It's not going to excite you, but it's a showdown slate. He's run 23 routes since the bye week over the last 2 games. By the way, Chuba Hubbard, 45 routes, Miles Sanders, 20 over that stretch. Mingo and Thielen, 86 and 85. Sharks, 64 routes. Marshall, 25, but you anticipate that coming up a lot because all of them came in the last game. What other skill players should we be talking about for Carolina, if any?
I think Mingo could go overlooked with Terrace Marshall just being at the stone min. It's not like Mingo's expensive himself. He's 2,800 in the flex. And we can always project like snap share to increase, but targets are a different thing. Terrace Marshall could go out there. Is he just wind sprinting? Because Mingo has had a better target share. Is it something like, all right, now that Terrace Marshall plays every snap, that's great. He can block and stuff, but Mingo's the guy that gets the targets. So that's something I'm kind of mulling over in my mind. That's the way I kind of think it's going to go with Mingo just being their flashy new rookie. And I think they can use him more in like gadget roles and stuff too. I'm not sure exactly what like Terrace Marshall does well. I think he's just going to play a lot of snaps. But there's certain constructions where you might not even need to go all the way down there. Say you play like Tyler Scott on the Bears as your min price guy, then you have a lot of salary to work with, and you might not need a second min price guy. So there's at least options. I think Mingo has a chance to go under-owned. I like him quite a bit here.
Yeah. All right. People saying Herbert's out. Is Herbert confirmed out? Because when I did this, like when I did the run sheet 30 minutes ago, he was not out.
He's not confirmed out. There's just reporters saying they might not activate him.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, then that could make a difference. We'll talk about that in a second, because if he ends up sitting, Donta Foreman's coming off a 20 carry game. You know, it's funny. You keep getting this feeling, you know, week over week that maybe Rashawn Johnson gets more opportunities, but it appears that each week Donta Foreman, when healthy, just continues to be the guy.
I think that's going to remain the case too, with how well D'Onta Foreman's played. Guy's a monster out there. He's doing well in the pass game too, which is Roschon's strength. And I do think Roschon continues to play on clear passing situations, long third downs, hurry up stuff. But man, Foreman, I don't know how you can take him off the field at this point. So when you're talking Bears stuff and people with ceilings, I know he's 8,600, and for a back that will seed some carries, it's a little expensive. But again, we have the value, guys. Why not just go up and play Foreman? You also have the Bears as a rare favorite. I mean, a lot is working in Foreman's favor today. I like him quite a bit. And then if we get the definitive Khalil Herbert news, that's only going to make me like him more.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking at it now. That came in as I was doing the run sheet, like an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Schefter. I know it's Pelissero. He's been wrong plenty of times. We'll see.
Yeah, I hear you. So you're saying there's still a possibility?
I don't listen to anyone unless it's Schefter.
Yeah,
he's probably right, but I don't know, man. He's been wrong before. That's the only thing I'll say.
You don't listen to Ian Rappaport on you don't take him as gospel?
No, I don't.
Hey, what else for Carolina should we be getting into? Just looking, by the way, at our tools, some interesting stuff popping up here that doesn't surprise me. I think I'm in line with a lot of it. The one spot, and I know you mentioned that oftentimes our tools kind of have some of these running backs negatively leveraged, and you know, those are spots that you can make some manual tweaks to. The only spot that I looked at and went, that's a little odd, was, and we still have Khalil Herbert in, because when we ran these projections, it looked more likely than not with the full practices that he was actually going to be in. The only one I thought Chuba Hubbard would have slightly higher leverage at that price point. He's still a positively leveraged player in our tool, in our single game and top plays tool. Mike, by the way, you can bring that up so the people who aren't premium subs can see what we're looking at here, because you're seeing the captain ownership, you're seeing the top play probability, optimal captain probability, same with utility and leverage score. But look at our highest leverage players right now. There's a few from each team, but Mingo is up there at the top with DJ Moore or DJ Shark not expected to play. Bryce Young up there at a sub 10K price point. Adam Thielen, despite the salary, also up there. He's a target monster on this team. And Terrace Marshall up there makes sense at 4% positive leverage. Would you consider Terrace Marshall at captain? Do you have preferences here as your favorite captains? Because Adam Thielen has an 18% optimal captain rate right now.
I don't think I'm going to consider Terrace Marshall a captain, and it's kind of just because of his price. Like, if you play him in the flex, you can get a really good captain and a captain you feel good about, and I don't think you need to do it. You know, like, there's not enough studs on this slate for me to want to just jam a min price guy and then like layer out 5 studs through my lineups. I think you can play one of the punt guys in the flex, get a captain you feel really good about, and then just move on from there. So honestly, looking at the tools, I think this makes a lot of sense. It's basically pointing you to a stars and scrubs build, and I'm fine with this. I don't think any of them are going to be all that chalky individually because of the options too. Like Mingo's 2,800. You need a cheaper guy, Terrace Marshall's 400. We have Tyler Scott on the Bears at the stone minimum. There's plenty of cheap options that we can be mixing and matching. And we haven't even talked about the Bears yet. There's a couple guys over there I think you could also use as options.
Let me ask you this. How much, given that there's, you know, a new play caller in Carolina, how comfortable are you looking at target shares for the whole season and then for the last 2 weeks since the changes have been made?
I think we can use the whole season, maybe not with like 100% confidence, but I was at least pleased to see Adam Thielen's targets remain pretty consistent. He was obviously a target dominator in the early half of the season, but then he still was like the first look, got a ton of targets with the new signal caller. So I think that's going to remain constant. Everyone else has kind of just been targeted here and there. I think Mingo will be 2 and Terrace Marshall will be 3. The tight ends are going to rotate, but I at least have some confidence in the new play caller because things didn't change all that much when he took over.
You look at the last two weeks, Thielen's still 25% target share. Mingo 13% target share, 22% of air yards. Chuba Hubbard at 12%, Shark at 10%. How do you feel? So you mentioned the stars and scrubs, and I'm with you. It looks like right now, if you're just talking about leverage at the captain spot, Jonathan Mingo's got a decent amount of positive leverage at captain. And to me, it does make sense.
I think he's probably the cheapest I'm willing to go a captain.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
No, just because of the safety, I think his target share provides versus like Terrace Marshall. He might get like 1 target. He's going to play a ton, but we don't know. So Mingo, I think for captain is just kind of like that floor for me. Because I mean, I was building this morning. It's not hard to get a stud captain and then just play a scrub or something in your flex and have a really good lineup. So I don't know how much risk I really want to be taking on a captain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, quite frankly, you can play Adam Thielen comfortably at the captain spot, very comfortably.
Yes. No
like
question.
if you just plug Thielen in at captain and then Mingo in next, we're going to build a lineup as well. But if you plug Thielen in and then Mingo, you have almost 7,500 per player for the remaining 4 flex spots. That's a ton.
Yeah, you can really do whatever you want.
Yeah. There's no fields. It just means, I mean, you can still play DJ Moore, but if you go away from DJ Moore in a spot like this, you literally have, there's endless possibilities. So that's the way it goes. Anything else for Carolina you want to hit on? Backup, tight ends, defense, kicker, anything? Bryce Young, thoughts?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm seeing in the tools is Bryce Young might be positively leveraged. And I think that's just because, like, who wants to click on Bryce Young at this point after the 3 picks, the 2 pick sixes? I imagine people just clicking lineups on their phone are going to go to Thielen over him. And I want to play them both, but I think there might be just a little leverage Bryce Young's direction if you're willing to play him at a slightly higher rate than Thielen, stuff like that. But yeah, that's really it. Should be a much easier matchup for Bryce Young this week. I mean, not that Indy was particularly difficult, but he's a quarterback, balls in his hands every play. He's below 10K. I mean, sometimes that's all there is to say.
I'm with you. Ryan said, just building lineups, I feel like it's almost optimal to leave money on the table. This is definitely one of those games, one of those nights where you could leave money on the table and feel 100% fine about your lineup.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Even if it's I know we both think Mingo he looks good in the tools. He's going to be on the field a ton, but let's just assume that we're right and Terrace Marshall really does get all the opportunities. Even just going from Mingo to Terrace Marshall and leaving the 2,000 on the table in some lineups, because if they're both on the field the same amount of time, I don't think Mingo has a massive edge over him. If it's giving you, an additional 2,000, you leave 3,000 on the table and you're still getting a guy that's going to be on the field for the large majority of snaps.
100% agree with that. And there's a number of ways you can do this. That's a very easy one. And I would do this if you're playing like larger field tournament stuff, anything like over, I don't know, 20K entries. That's where you can start considering stuff like that. Plus, there's a ton of options. That's not just the only option you can take, but definitely live.
Hey, guys, we have a new sponsor on the Showdown Strategy Show, and it is a good one. There's a lot of pick'em sites out there. They all have the standard $100, match deposit bonus, which is very good because they match it and then you can immediately play it. Vivid Picks. They've been around a while. Not sure we've worked with them before, but they have a standard match deposit of 100 if you were to just go over there. If you use the link in the description that we've got today, or the one that Mike can throw in the chat, $300 deposit match on your first deposit. You're not finding that anywhere else. You're not finding that anywhere other than right here with the link. Up to $300 first match deposit bonus. That's massive. Massive. So you think about it, like, let's just assume you have the means to do so. 300 is 600 now. That's huge. If you have 100, you're still getting 100. You got $150, you got 300 now. Huge. Also to sweeten the pot, especially maybe you don't have all 300 to max this out, your first entry on Vivid Picks comes with a $25 secure play. So if it loses, you're getting another $25 back in site credit. All you're doing, right? You guys know how these pick'em sites work. All you're doing is you're predicting whether players are going to have more or less than their projected stats across multiple sports. And you combine your selections for bigger payouts, right? So in traditional books, this would be called a parlay. But here it's different. There's no juice on either side. You never have to worry about like, oh, this is minus 150. I can't take this. You're just combining your favorite plays, whether more or less of the stat that's on the screen, and putting them together for bigger payouts. Now, Matt, I have one today that I really like. We talked about Chuba Hubbard. I'm going over on receiving yards there. The Chicago Bears have been decimated by pass catching backs all season long. Look, is he an elite Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones type pass catching back? No, but I don't know if you need that at 12.5 receiving yards. I really don't think you need that. It's a good spot. You mentioned Tremaine Edmonds is out. That's huge. $300 first match deposit bonus plus a $25 secure play. There's a lot of pick'em sites out there, but I see this, you would agree, because it's the same as when you talk about sports books, you're like, you should be on as many sports books as possible because you can always shop the odds. Well, and you can always get the big sign-up bonuses. I see it no different from a Vivid Picks to a Prize Picks to an Underdog to any of them. It's the same thing, in my opinion. And you're getting free squares week over week, day over day that might only be on one site. Why not spread the money around?
You absolutely should be doing that. I don't think people realize how big of a difference that can mean to your long-term
receiving yards overs in there. If you're jumping in on that, link in the description and in chat. If you want to max that out, get up to $300. It's a great one. All right. You ready to talk about the Chicago Bears? Just good teams after good team today.
Never been more ready, man.
Let's do All right. Well, I'm starting you off with a fun one. Tyson Bagent, we have positively leveraged today. How about this? I want to combine these two questions. No better person to answer it than you. Not only could you tell me the stats here, but you could tell me where everyone went to college. Did you know, by the way, coming into this, that Tyson Bagent, not today, but did you know he was a Shepherd University guy? I only did because I did preseason content.
I did because he won like the version of the Heisman. So, I mean,
okay.
So, I mean, probably the only D2 player I could name, but yeah.
Okay. That's all. I wasn't sure if you had a wealth of knowledge going down to D2 schools.
Not usually.
Me. All right. Well, he is positively leveraged at captain and slightly at the utility spot. He's $9,200. I know you kind of shit talk to their weapons, but DJ Moore and Cole Kmet aren't exactly bad players. Cole Kmet coming off a 2-score game last week, 10 for 79 the week before that in that loss to the Chargers. They've got a couple guys in the passing game that Tyson Bagent can lean on. What are you doing with him, and how big do you think the impact is losing someone like Burns and the injuries that Carolina's defense has?
Yeah, if I was bad-mouthing the Bears pass catchers, I'm sorry. It's not actually so much the Bears pass catchers I don't like. It's not really trusting Bagent at this point. I love DJ Moore. I think he's awesome. I think Darnell Mooney is a good situational wide receiver too. And Cole Kmet seems to be a complete tight end. I even have a little bit of faith in Tyler Scott as a rookie. I like that they're taking shots on like high upside rookies after they completely messed up with players like Velus Jones in the past. So I like these players individually. To me, I don't trust Bagent. D2 product. I mean, you can look at some of his box scores. I did, unfortunately, because I think it's probably biased me moving forward. Like, guy couldn't get it done against Colorado School of Mines. Like, I just find it really hard to believe this guy is going to have success against the Carolina Panthers, the New Jersey Generals. I mean, anyone at a high level of football coming out of D2. It's probably a bias for me. And honestly, this is how I can rely on the tools, because he's positively leveraged. And honestly, I think this is just because the guy has the ball in his hands every play. And I mean, he hasn't been bad. He hasn't been good either, but he's 9,200. If any of the Bills skill position players that aren't running backs have success, it has to be through him. So I'm not super excited about DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and these guys. I'd rather play their counterparts on the other side in the Panthers passing game. But yeah, I mean, they're connected to Bagent. So if you like Bagent and he's positively leveraged, should have some interest in DJ Moore too as the target dominator. I have a lot of interest in Cole Kmet. For whatever reason, Bagent's like locked onto him in games. He's an awesome target share since Bagent took over. Little less interest in Mooney. And then Tyler Scott's the min. So, I mean, he's on the field a ton. You should consider him as a pivot off Terrace Marshall just because he plays a lot, even if the targets aren't there. But yeah, does that make sense on the Bears? It's a long rambling.
No, I'm happy to hear it. It makes perfect sense to me. Did you mention the New Jersey Generals? Yeah, Cole Kmet's getting a lot of opportunity. Look, I don't know, man. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do the defensive injuries influence decision making for you for Carolina today when it comes to Bears skill players and quarterback?
A little bit. I mean, they lost their best player. Brian Burns.
By far their best player.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of good players in this defense to begin with. They're okay. But Brian Burns is like the only player I think that might make a Pro Bowl or something, if that makes sense. He's out. So Bagent shouldn't be pressured much. The Bears offensive line is pretty good anyway. So, I mean, if they focus their attention on Brian Burns, say he was healthy, I think they could get it done. But that's another reason why I just like the Bears run game is they have a big mismatch over this it's maybe not big. They have a mismatch over this Carolina D line. This offensive line's played well since they've gotten healthy. They have a lot invested in it at this point. They're just young. Foreman's been good. I mean, what do you think the chances are they just neuter their offense and don't really even use Bagent?
Well, I think that would probably be a wise decision. I don't know if they do it, but the D'Onta Foreman game in week 8 against the Chargers, that's kind of a throwaway. They were playing from behind very early. That game was never competitive. He's not exactly an electric pass catcher. But then you look against New Orleans, they were playing from behind, but not, but they were in striking distance. He had 20 carries. I mean, that's a lot of opportunities. The first thing that stood out to me, was the Chuba Hubbard price point. But if Khalil Herbert is also sidelined, D'Onta Foreman being essentially the same price as Chuba Hubbard, I mean, both of these guys have to be viewed through a similar lens. I know that Chuba Hubbard is involved more as a pass catcher than D'Onta Foreman would be, but still, D'Onta Foreman's opportunities on the ground in a competitive game, mind you, the Chicago Bears are favorites today, which is crazy. He played almost 60% of snaps last game. Roschon Johnson has been, in large part, an afterthought behind him. He had 2 attempts and 1 target in that previous game compared to 22 total touches for D'Onta Foreman. If this continues, then D'Onta Foreman could be another 20-plus touch guy that you're getting at sub 9K.
Yeah, Foreman's my favorite Bear. I don't think, especially now that it looks like Khalil Herbert is going to miss, just confirm that news. I'd say it's likely. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my lineups I think are going to have some combination of the expensive Panthers, whether it's Young, Hubbard, and Adam Thielen, and then just my lone Bear stud's probably going to be Foreman. I will mix in Bagent. I mean, you just can't X out Bagent at 9,200 when he has the ball in his hands every single play. But price adjusted, I definitely prefer Bagent and Foreman over DJ Moore. DJ Moore is really expensive on this slate, and he's entirely dependent on a D2 rookie quarterback who spread the ball around a pretty good amount. Like Cole Kmet's target share is awesome, and that definitely hurts DJ Moore. I'm not a big DJ Moore fan tonight, which is dangerous to say given his talent. But I think I'm going to be heavier on on D'Onta Foreman and Bagent overall.
Here's kind of how I see it. I know it's not apples to apples because Thielen and Moore aren't the same price, but they are the 2 highest priced players on the slate with Justin Fields out. I would rather have Thielen over Moore at that price because they're still going to pepper Thielen with targets you would expect. I think I'd rather have Cole Kmet at a massive discount over DJ Moore as well.
I agree with you. And you mentioned it. It's that price point. And even with the value plays, it's not like we can just go in our lineups and say, all right, Bagent, Foreman, Thielen, Hubbard, and Bryce Young, they don't all fit. You can get 4 of them pretty easily, but you need to make a choice somewhere. And DJ Moore, I think, is the guy that is just on the outside looking in for me.
What about, because I want to get into some of these value options, and we will in a moment. You mentioned there's somebody here that we can talk about. By the way, if Darnell Mooney was on a competent offense, like if you put Darnell Mooney in a Devontae Smith role, he would be 1,000-yard receiver on like 50 receptions. That's what he would, he'd average like 50, he'd average like 60 yards a game on 3 receptions, 4 receptions. That's what he would be. Darnell Mooney is, look, he's not the guy that we saw a few years ago when they were completely devoid of other pass catching options. But tell me on a good offense that can throw the ball downfield that Mooney wouldn't have, 2-3 deep attempts a game or something like that and be able to make something of it. Even when Justin Fields was healthy and they'd target Darnell Mooney, somehow that connection was so off and the synergy was so bad that he'd target him 3 times downfield. There wouldn't be a ball within 15 yards of him. And then everyone that went, by the way, DJ Moore is way better. Don't get me wrong. But then everything was perfectly targeted to DJ Moore. Darnell Mooney in the right spot could be a guy that you could convince me is a great showdown option. And if Justin Fields was playing, I think I would tell you that I'm on board. I don't understand the price point on Darnell Mooney. That's what's troubling to me. How is he almost $8,000? And how can I justify that over similarly priced guys like Foreman and Chuba Hubbard and Cole Kmet? Like he's more expensive than Cole Kmet. I'm just having a really tough time justifying that outside of maybe trying to get some positive leverage, but he's not going unowned either.
That's exactly it. Our tools have him getting a little bit of ownership, which is surprising to me at this price point. You mentioned all the alternatives. And, I watch a lot of Bears games. I'm a Bears fan. Mooney, this is just anecdotal. He is streaking downfield like countless times through his career, and he just gets an uncatchable target. I don't know. But
that's what I was saying, though. How many of them this year were completely uncatchable when he was wide open?
That's been a year-long thing, or like year after year for Mooney. It's nuts. But like he's going to have to be really, really low owned for me to want to consider him at this price tag. We have him slightly positively leveraged right now. I'm not even sure it's enough for me. Like 20%, 21% utility ownership. I think it'd have to be lower at this price tag, depending on the tournaments you're playing.
Who are your favorite captains for? And speaking from a DraftKings perspective here, because it's 1.5 times salary. Like on FanDuel, if you're talking about MVP, and you can pull up the tool too. From an MVP perspective, you have to think that Adam Thielen, either of these two, look at the optimal captain rates on FanDuel. Bagent 18, Thielen 15, Bryce Young 17, and then it falls off a cliff. I will say, I don't mean to jump around too much, Matt, but I know there's some people that play FanDuel as well. Chuba Hubbard and Dante Foreman, I would probably, if playing on FanDuel, not have many issues with them being at the captain spot, only because you could see this game taking a change in direction and they just lean on the ground, both teams.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me by any means. I mean, but I think both teams are trying to hide their quarterbacks right now.
Right.
Especially the Bears.
Anyway, on DraftKings, favorite Bears captains, are there spots that jump off the page at you that you go, I just prefer these guys a captain? And we can assume, let's say Khalil Herbert doesn't play.
I think it's number 1, Deontay Foreman, and 2 is probably Cole Kmet. As crazy as that is, I just cannot buy into Bagent right now. In the right game environments, and you'd have to do this in the projections yourself. I think there's a risk that he throws the ball like 22 times if the Bears are winning. So I don't know. I'm not going to buy the D2 rookie. I think Foreman has significant upside, and then the target share for Kmet is strong, and he's also at a different price point than DJ Moore. So, if they take that very run-heavy approach, like Cole Kmet at 6,600, DJ Moore's almost double that. So your roster construction looks much, much different.
And Kmet's playing almost the entire game. So, all right. Is the cheap guy you were referring to, that you were alluding to earlier, is that Tyler Scott?
Yeah. He's like Terrace Marshall of the Bears. Plays a lot, doesn't get a lot of targets, but he's a rookie. I mean, maybe he gets more.
You like him?
I like him as a player. He went to Cincinnati. He was awesome there. He's a field stretcher, and they've kind of been like hunting for another field stretcher for a while opposite Mooney. Wasted a lot of picks on a lot of bad players, including Velus Jones, who's about my age. But yeah, I mean, we don't know a lot about Tyler Scott. We'll see. I loved him in college. He just hasn't gotten enough opportunity for really a decision to be made, I think, on him and his talent. But I mean, the Bears should give him opportunities. Equanimous St. Brown's gone on IR. He should have been getting opportunities anyway. He's a waste of snaps. You're basically playing 10 on 11 when he's on the field. With Velus Jones, you're definitely playing 10 on 11. Like maybe Tyler Scott's halfway decent. I don't know. He at least gives you a chance. He's an unknown.
Man, how often do we have a situation where you have essentially a minimum salary pass catcher on both teams that's playing a lot of snaps? Sure, not a great target share, not the top options in the passing game, but you could get 60% of snaps from Tyler Scott today. You could get 80% from Terrace Marshall Jr. They're $200 and $400 respectively.
I think you just got to mix and match them. I like that there's two, so we're not all just locked into one build where everyone's holding hands with, say, Terrace Marshall and then all the studs. Tyler Scott being there helps. Mingo being cheap helps. There's a couple of these guys.
Anyone else you want to talk about that we haven't hit on for Chicago? Any diamonds in the rough?
They use 12 personnel sometimes. Unfortunately, they use two tight ends in this capacity. Robert Tonyan mixes on for more pass stuff. And then they use Mercedes Lewis a decent amount, but he's strictly a blocker, only had one route. Or at least I have ripped on Velus Jones quite a bit on this show. He'll play some. He had 10 routes or 10 snaps, 7 routes last game. Other than that, though, I don't think there's anybody.
How do you feel about the Bears defense today? How do you feel about either defense? I know you're not into captaining kickers, and I don't blame you even a little bit. When it comes to the defenses, though, are these price points reasonable enough for us, or is it tougher to get there because it's so easy to build lineups without any restrictions?
I think that's exactly it. I don't love either defense, but at the same time, they're both facing incompetent offenses. So something has to give here. I don't know who comes up, the offenses or the defenses, but ultimately the reason I don't have as much interest in the Bears or the Panthers defense is because of the cheap options we have, the stars and scrubs build you can take. I'll be building multiple lineups tonight, so when I'm building, I'm not going to purposely restrict them or X them out by any means, but I don't anticipate getting as much as different slate structures we've seen in the past.
Want to take a look at the lineup simulator?
I'd love to.
Let's do it. And for what it's worth, let me just make sure. Let me see something here. I just want to see, because it's possible. Yeah, we haven't adjusted for Khalil Herbert yet. We will. It's too early. That just came out. But let's do it anyway, and just keep in mind that the Khalil Herbert news. Maybe you know what? You know what we should do? Mike, go into it real quick. Matt, let's just hit Dante Foreman with a big ROI boost, and let's just hit him with a big ROI boost and see what happens.
We should do that, yeah.
All right, so go into Mike favorite 150, and go into exposures for a second. Go to ROI boosts and Dante Foreman. Just click, search him. How much are we? I can't see the screen. How much are we get? What do you think, Matt? I mean, if Khalil Herbert is in fact out, you would think we're getting a lot more than that, right?
Yes, like 30%.
Boost his ROI to boost him like 25%. Both. I just want to see what happens. Hold on. Hit boost, yeah. And now go back to lineups. Unfavored him. All right. Scroll up, Mike. And then just sort top down on simmed ROI. I want to look at some of these lineups. Make sure that's right. And then just favorite 150. All right, cool. So, Matt, take a look at some of these lineups. Chuba Hubbard, Adam Thielen. So Hubbard at captain. We talked about that. Bryce Young, Mingo, Roschon Johnson, Tyson Bagent. We didn't talk much about Roschon Johnson. Is this a spot that you have interest in, or would you rather just live in that Foreman range given his price point?
I prefer Foreman, but I'll definitely play a little bit of Roschon. We've seen it split in the past, but I don't know if we need him in a lot of lineups. If he's just a small part of your portfolio, I think that's fine. Out of all the lineups we see on the screen, I only see him in 2, so it doesn't look like he's a major part. He probably just is one that fills that one out.
The second one is wild. That's a 5-1 Panthers. Adam Thielen. But look how many guys you can get into these lineups. It's so easy to play expensive players. A lot of Adam Thielen. And of course, you guys, if you have the Sims tool, you already know you can do ROI boosts. You can upload custom projections, however you want to play it. And then, of course, you can sort by like cash probability, top 10, simulated ROI, win probability, all of that. Link to all of our tools in the description and in the chat, by the way, if you wanted to get in on this. We'll take a look at the lineup generator in a second. Mike, go to exposures for me. All right, so our highest owned captain is 34% Thielen, Matt, but that makes sense because it's so easy to do whatever else you want to do.
Yeah, I have no issues with that at all.
What do you think about some of these exposures we're seeing here? Bagent, Young up top in the flex, Thielen in the flex, Mingo. Like I said, Foreman's going to change if Herbert's out.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that I wasn't expecting. I would rather play Bagent and Bryce Young in the flexes, Thielen in captain, and then the running backs I like in captain as well. So I don't think that's anything crazy. Maybe the biggest surprise is the Panthers being up there, the defense, but I don't know.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit, Mike. There's Hubbard. It's a lot of him at flex.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Do you think the Roschon Johnson exposure comes up or down if Khalil Herbert's out? That's the question.
I think it's got to come up, man. Like,
right? I might negatively boost that one a little bit.
Like he's got to come up.
27% commit. Okay. And all this is doing is building out a field in the contest generator that it assumes will replicate what the actual field looks like. And then this is just a intricate lineup sorting process that's finding the highest leverage lineups, the highest simulated ROI lineups, and then giving them to you in order. It's a massively useful tool. Greg just took down 100K with the NBA lineup generator last week. So they work. Go to lineup generator before we go, or with the simulator, but go to lineup generator before we go, Mike. Pull that up. Matt, what do you think we should do as far as projections on this?
I don't know. Probably the craziest one I'd be. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe doing the Panthers winning because we're already getting a ton of Panthers. I don't know. Or like, what does it take for us to get more Bears? Do they need to be like 7-point favorites or something? I don't know.
You want to try bumping the Bears up 6 and the Panthers down 6 and just see what it looks like?
Yeah, let's do it because we're already getting a lot of Panthers and the dogs already.
Lineup generator is an individual tool, by the way. It's the best entry level tool you'll find in the industry. It's a good, phenomenal price and a lot of customization too. Go to DraftKings Showdown, Mike, and then go to all lineups. As Neil always points out, you can still, even if you go chalky, you can find some good stuff. You want to go Bears up, Carolina down?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's try it. See what we get. Feeling more. See, it has Herbert in there still. That's the problem. So we'll have to discard that. Let me see what it looks like with some of these non-Herbert lineups. Because I would assume, Matt, you're gonna see a ton of running backs for the Bears if we're playing them up and Tyson Bagent is their quarterback.
That's what I would think.
And you can swap guys. You can also see the optimal projection here, how chalky something is. Once you're done and you save the lineups you want, you can see the exposures to everything. Main slate's really cool because you can see stack exposures, upload them straight to CSV. It's optimized for mobile as well, so you don't have to be on your computer. Yeah, this is tough with Khalil Herbert still being projected in, and we don't have news on him. Wow, look at that though, dude. Thielen and Mingo are the two highest, but then everything else is just a ton of Bears. A lot of Dante Foreman too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Me too. It's also, this is kind of what I wanted to see. I was hoping that we'd see that it's kind of less DJ Moore and more Foreman and Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that reaffirms what I had as prior. So happy about that.
I was going to say, we kind of like when these reaffirm our original thoughts, but don't always adjust them in order to fit your thoughts. That's when you can get into some trouble.
For sure.
NBA strategy shows coming up after this, but I think we have to keep tradition and build one lineup out before we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Now you are actually up for captain. So play whoever you want. Do we want to go large field? Do we want to go midfield, single entry style? What are you thinking?
Let's do larger field. Maybe one of the larger single entries or something.
Okay. We'll go large. Yeah, but not the Thursday night 500K up top one.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me.
Going Foreman as captain.
Yes. And again, if you're watching this after the fact, this is, still before 10 o'clock Eastern time, Thursday morning. We don't know if Herbert's out, but as we progress through the show, it appears more likely that he's not going to play. You know what? Let's play to the build we were kind of talking about. I'll go Chuba Hubbard.
I love Chuba Hubbard, even in builds where we have Foreman as captain. I'm going to put in Adam Thielen. Again, we know we're going to probably play one of these value guys. So in anticipation of that, we'll just jam another stud.
Okay. Let's go. You know what? You know what I'm going to do? Because Chuba Hubbard's ran almost 50 routes over his last two games, let's get a little interesting. I'll go Bryce Young here, which gives us Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, and Adam Thielen.
All right, so we want to play one of the value guys, I'm guessing. Do you want to get a little different with Scott?
So that's what I was thinking. I would almost be more intrigued to go with a guy like Scott since we have Hubbard and Thielen. And then it gives us $7,300. You could go Kmet. You could go, we get into that weird range.
I think Kmet's just fine.
So do I. Because how much does Scott really need to do at minimum salary?
2 catches.
The only thing here, okay, so we leave 700. We don't have Tyson Bagent, but we have 2 pass catchers for Chicago and Foreman captain, but it gives us Hubbard, Thielen, and Bryce Young for the Panthers. It's a 3-3 build. What do you think?
I think it's fine to have 2 pass catchers when one of them is your stone min guy. Like you said, what does he really have to do for us to hit value? Couple catches for him and he's fine. He doesn't even need a touchdown really at this price. So, I mean, Bagent could fail. Tyler Scott could still hit value. And then as long as Cole Kmet soaks up a decent amount of targets, we're good.
Ryan said, Lavi, can you build a FanDuel lineup today too? I promise on Monday we will. We'll be more expedient with our process, but the strategy show is coming up next. We got to give them time to flip over. I promise. On next Monday, we will. But I appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Always a fun show to kick off the morning. And those of you who got us north of 100 likes, you are the best. Thank you. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. You see it right there. It's a tough one to spell, but you can read, fortunately. I'm Loughran_D, LOUGHY_D. Thanks to Mike for producing this one. Adam and Josh coming up next. NBA strategy show. And then NFL ownership top stack show breaking down week 10. Eric Lindquist and myself. Don't go anywhere. If you've got nothing to do today, I hope you stick here with us on the channel. Until next time, peace.